On a lightly rainy afternoon in Washington, Bill Gates, the famous billionaire and founder of Microsoft, decided to do something he rarely does in his busy life. After a long day of stressful meetings and work discussions, Bill left the office and did not go home by private car as usual. Instead, he decided to take a walk through the bustling streets of the city to relax and find some peace in the hustle and bustle of a man who is always busy with projects that change the world. It was a sudden decision, but it carried a deep motivation that he could not clearly explain. The cold of autumn made the air in Washington, D.C., more fresh and crisp. Under the fallen yellow trees, the streetlights twinkled like small stars in the quiet night. Bill did not rush. He let himself drift in that space, watching the familiar streets that sometimes, with his wealth and fame, he no longer had the opportunity to fully enjoy. After a few minutes of walking, he found himself in a large shopping mall located right in the middle of a bustling neighborhood. This shopping mall was always crowded during the day, with shoppers rushing, young couples holding hands, and families playing together between the stalls. But now, when the night had fallen and the lights inside the mall began to flash, signaling the approaching closing time, the scene here was completely different. The stalls were quiet. The long corridors were almost deserted. The atmosphere was now gloomy, quiet, but also filled with the haste of the cleaning staff at the end of the day. Bill walked into the mall, slowly walking through the corridors. Everything seemed to be as busy as a normal day, but under the silence of the evening, the sounds seemed to be absent. His footsteps echoed in the space, just like the echo of the thoughts rushing through the head of a busy man. The neon lights were bright, but also created dark corners where people could sometimes feel lost in this world. As he passed a customer rest area, Bill's eyes happened to catch a strange and confusing sight. It was a little girl, about 5 years old, sitting alone on a bench near the waiting area. She had a light pink backpack, and in her arm, she tightly hugged a small, old teddy bear, the outer fabric of which seemed to have been torn by time. Her long hair was a bit messy, and her big round eyes were filled with fear, but also contained a hint of hope. Although there were empty seats and people walking by, no one stopped to pay any attention. Bill looked at her for a moment. She sat there, clutching her teddy bear, her eyes fixed on the door as if waiting for someone. But when he looked up and looked around, he noticed something strange. No one else was near her. No one had come to take her home. People just glanced at her, sometimes pretending not to see her. Some didn't even change their pace as they passed, just looked and continued walking without stopping, asking questions, or showing concern. Bill felt something was wrong. Why was such a small girl sitting alone in a shopping mall at closing time? Her eyes, filled with worry and fatigue, seemed to be searching for something, or perhaps someone. She kept looking back and forth, her eyes on the door, but no one appeared. He continued to watch from a distance, unable to take his eyes off the little girl, even though she did not notice his presence. A silence fell over the area, but inside Bill, a feeling of unease and anxiety was beginning to rise. He could not explain why he felt such a strange connection to a complete stranger, but he knew he could not ignore it. The shopping mall gradually fell into the silence of the night. The employees began to check the shelves, pack up the last items, and prepare for closing. At this moment, an announcement came over the loudspeaker system, announcing that the mall would be closing in a few minutes. It was a clear sign that everything would soon end for the day. But the little girl sat there, unmoving, unchanging. Bill's heart grew more anxious. Bill Gates walked closer to the little girl, a feeling of worry rising in his heart. when he saw her teary eyes, her eyes trying to find a foothold among so many strangers in the vast and cold space of the mall that was about to close. As he stood closer, Bill leaned down slightly to look straight into her eyes, an action that came naturally to him when interacting with children in his charity programs. He knew that sometimes gentleness and kindness could create a stronger connection than any words. "Little girl, are you waiting for someone?" he asked, his voice warm but full of concern. The little girl looked up at him, her eyes wide and filled with tears. Tears were welling up in her eyes, but she tried to hold them back. It seemed like a long time since she had met a stranger who seemed so kind and caring. Her lips trembled as she spoke. "I'm waiting for my dad. He said he would come get me, but he didn't. I've been waiting for him for so long. He will come." Her voice was weak, mixed with a little uncertainty, but also full of strong faith in her father's promise. Bill felt his heart tighten. A child, sitting alone in a shopping mall at closing time, hugging a teddy bear with no one beside her. The worry in her eyes could not hide her loneliness and her longing to be protected and loved. He leaned down, carefully sat next to her, looked into her young face, and said, "Don't worry, your father will come. But maybe he's having some trouble and will come later. Can I help you? Do you want me to go with you to find him?" The little girl looked at him, her eyes brightening a little, but then looked back down at her teddy bear, as if hoping that her father would appear immediately. I don't know. He said he would come pick me up after he took the guests to the hospital. But I've waited too long. Everyone else has gone home," as she said, her voice filled with anxiety and disappointment. Bill felt a lump in his throat. He could clearly see in her words that she didn't understand why her father hadn't come, and that made her feel confused and lost in the crowd, with no one caring. The indifference of the people around her seemed to highlight her loneliness. Bill looked around, realizing that although people were passing by, no one stopped to help the little girl. No one had the sense of responsibility to ask or worry. "How long have you been waiting for Daddy?" Bill asked softly. The little girl looked up, her eyes blurred with tears. "I don't remember. At first I thought he was just leaving quickly. But now I've waited so long. Everyone's gone home. I don't know where he is." Her voice was weak, as if she was losing faith in her father's promise. The words were like a confession of the disappointment that was rising in the little girl's heart. Bill's heart ached as he listened. He didn't know what to do right now to ease her pain, but he knew he had to act. "Don't worry, little girl. We'll find your father. I'll help you. No one will leave you alone," Bill said, his eyes filled with determination. He stood up, held out his hand to her, and smiled gently to reassure her. "If your father can't come right away, I'll help you get to a safe place where we can call him." The little girl sat silently, looking at Bill's hands as if thinking about his offer. After a while, the little girl gently took Bill's hand, trust gradually replacing the worry in her eyes. "So we're going to find Daddy?" she asked. "We'll find Daddy. I'll help you. We'll take it slow. There's no need to rush." Bill smiled and patted her hand as if it were a promise. As they stood up and prepared to leave, the little girl still held the teddy bear tightly in her arms. But this time, her eyes were no longer filled with fear. It seemed that Bill's presence had brought her a bit of hope and peace of mind that she had been searching for so long. A stranger, but it gave her the feeling that someone really cared about her. For the first time in a long time, she felt that she was no longer alone in this world. Bill gently led her towards the information desk, where the mall staff was cleaning up in preparation for closing. He kept reassuring her, looking for a place that could help them find her father. Even though he knew that her father might be in an emergency, he still couldn't leave her alone when she needed help. The girl kept looking towards the center's door as if her father would appear at any moment. Bill paused for a moment and said, "We'll sit here for a while. Wait a little longer. But if your father doesn't come in time, I'll help you contact him, okay?" The girl looked at him, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Yes, I'll wait for him. I believe he will come." Her voice was a little firmer, though the worry was still in her eyes. Bill smiled and put his hand on her shoulder. "Your father will come? For now, we wait together. And if necessary, I'll help you contact your father immediately." The story between Bill Gates and the little girl at this moment was not just a simple exchange, but a meaningful, small action, making Bill realize that sometimes small moments, a little bit of sincere care, can completely change a child's feelings and maybe a whole life. Time passed, but there was still no sign of the father. Outside, the mall's loudspeaker continuously announced that it was closing time. Along with that were the hurried footsteps of customers leaving, giving way to the darkness that was covering the place. The dim light of the electric lights reflected on the shiny tiled floor, making the space even more quiet and cold. Bill Gates stood looking out the main door, his eyes thoughtful. He knew that at this moment, the anxiety and anticipation in the little girl's eyes were gradually turning into disappointment. The little girl was still sitting next to him, hugging the teddy bear tightly, occasionally looking up at the people passing by, but no one stopped. The tears had almost dried, but in her heart, the longing and fear could not be alleviated. Bill looked towards the information desk, where a few employees were packing up, preparing to close. He turned back to look at the girl once more, then stood up, stretching as if guiding something. "Do you want us to try looking for Dad somewhere else? I think if we go to the police station, they might be able to help us find your dad." The girl looked up, her eyes sparkling with confusion. "But Dad will come. I believe he will. Why do we have to go far? He said he would pick me up," and she said, her voice still trembling as if she did not want to leave. Bill leaned down, smiling gently. "I understand how you feel, but maybe something unexpected happened to your dad. If we go to the police station, they will help find him, and he will definitely be happy to see you there. You can see your father right away, right?" The girl hesitated, but then her eyes revealed a look of trust. She nodded, still a little nervous, but also feeling relieved that she wasn't alone. Bill gently took her hand and began to lead her out of the mall. The light gradually became dimmer as they walked through the automatic doors of the mall. The outdoor space was a stark contrast to the cozy atmosphere inside. The cold autumn wind blew gently, but the girl didn't feel cold, because in her heart, the feeling of security had returned with Bill by her side. After walking a short distance, the two of them came to a corner where there was a small police station. This police station wasn't too big, but it was enough to make people feel safe when they were in trouble. Bill Gates walked in and was greeted by a young police officer, a woman in her 30s. "Hello, Mr. Gates. Is there anything I can help you with?" The police officer spoke softly, recognizing him immediately. Bill looked at the girl, then turned to the police officer and explained briefly. "I just saw a little girl at the mall. She was waiting for her father, but her father had not come to pick her up. We waited a long time, and now the mall is closed. She is very worried, and I think we need help to find her father." The police officer nodded immediately. "Of course, Mr. Gates. We will help right away. Thank you for bringing her here. We will immediately look for information about her relatives." She turned to the girl, smiled, and said softly, "Hello, what is your name?" The girl looked at the police officer for a moment, then answered hesitantly, "My name is Lisa. I am waiting for my father to pick me up." The police took note of the girl's name, and quickly took steps to verify her information, starting to contact the relevant agencies to find her father. Bill stood nearby, observing everything, naturally feeling a little more at ease when he saw that the girl was being taken care of by an adult. After a short while, the police returned to Bill, his expression slightly tense. We contacted a few places. Her father is a taxi driver. They said he had to rush a patient to the hospital. He planned to send her to the playground in the mall, but when he came back, she was gone. So her father missed her? Bill asked, feeling sympathetic. Yes, but we have the contact information, and her father will be here soon, the police replied. Not long after, a man appeared at the police station. He looked very tired and worried. His face broke into a smile when he saw the little girl, but also so filled with anxiety, as if he had gone through a nightmare. He quickly walked over, hurriedly hugging her. Lisa, are you here? I'm sorry, I couldn't come pick you up sooner. The little girl hugged her father tightly, her eyes filled with tears, but a relieved smile appeared on her lips. Dad, I've been waiting for you for a long time, but you didn't come. I was so scared. The father comforted his daughter, tears welling up in his eyes. I'm sorry, Lisa. I had an urgent matter to take a patient to the hospital. Then I thought you were still at the playground. But when I came back, you weren't there. I was so worried. Thank you for helping me. Bill stood to the side, watching the touching scene. He couldn't help but feel deeply about the relationship between father and daughter, especially when he heard the father tell about his situation. This man had a hard time after the COVID-19 pandemic, lost his wife, and had to raise his child alone. He worked many jobs, from morning to night, to make a living, and now he had just found his daughter again. Bill Gates could not help but feel deep sympathy for this father's situation. He realized that life is sometimes cruel, but sometimes there are moments when help and care from others can change everything. That feeling urged him, and a decision gradually formed in his mind. It's okay, you did your best. Bill spoke up, stepping closer and patting the father on the shoulder. And if you need anything, I'm happy to help. The father looked up, looking at Bill with gratitude. Thank you very much. I don't know what to say. It's nothing. I just did what I could. But I think you and the girl need a stable home and a job that will allow you to spend more time with your daughter. Yeah, Bill said, then continued. I can help you with that. The father looked at Bill, his face surprised and touched. You want to help me? Bill smiled slightly. Yes, I think your family deserves a better life, and I will help you find a more suitable job. Let me take care of a stable home for your family. And I believe that with the hardships you have gone through, you will do great things to take care of this little girl. After the father received help from Bill Gates, their family's life began to change in a way they never imagined. Lisa, a little girl with bright eyes and an innocent heart, no longer had to worry about difficult days. Her father, David, no longer had to rush into the hustle and bustle of a single father, working many hard jobs, day and night, just to make ends meet. After Bill helped them find a small, cozy but fully furnished house on the outskirts of the city, David's family finally had a real home. This new house was not only a shelter, but also the beginning of a hopeful life. A place where Lisa could learn, play, and grow in a loving environment. Every morning, David took Lisa to school before starting his job at the security company, which Bill had helped him get. This new job provided David with a more stable income and at the same time gave him the opportunity to spend more time with Lisa without having to work all night like before. This made him feel secure and happy, because now he could pick up his daughter from school and spend time with her, studying, playing, and sharing small stories of the day. As for Lisa, she also quickly adapted to her new life. The little girl no longer had to sit alone on a chair in crowded shopping malls, but instead had happy afternoons with friends and warm evenings with her family. Every day, she was eager to go to school, where she had close friends, gentle teachers, and a complete learning environment. However, she still could not forget that special moment at the shopping mall when Bill Gates came to her side, comforting and helping her. She did not know who he was, but the feeling of security he brought her was unforgettable. Every time she saw her father happy, healthy, and not having to worry about work or money, Lisa felt warm in her heart, and that made her love her father even more. A man who was strong but also full of love. One evening, when the whole family was gathered around the dinner table, David said to Lisa, "You know, if it weren't for Bill's help, we might not have had this life. I'm very grateful to him, but he didn't just help our family. He helped many other people." Lisa looked up at her father, her eyes sparkling like the stars in the night sky. "Dad, I want to help others like Bill. I want to help people like he helped us." David smiled, patting his daughter's head. "I believe you can do it. Lisa, you have a kind heart, and I know you will always help those who need love." Although life still has its difficulties and challenges, with the help and love that David's family received, they felt as if they had overcome the great storms of life. Bill Gates not only helped them materially, but also helped them have faith in life, faith in love, and sharing. The story of Bill Gates, Lisa, and David is not only a story of kindness and helping, but also a testament to the power of small but meaningful actions. Sometimes, just a caring gesture, an act of kindness, can change someone's life forever. The David family knows that every day that passes, they are living in the protection of love. The love of a father, the love of a little girl, and the love of those around them. The simple, ordinary moments in life have brought them new hope, and for them, life has now become more beautiful than ever. Their story is not only a story of material help, but also a testament to the power of kindness and sharing. And sometimes, a chance encounter, a sincere concern, can change a person's life. For David's family, they understand that in life, care and love can be a powerful source of motivation to change their own lives and help them overcome all difficulties.